Welcome back. Oh, did you want to do it?
No.
Oh, I felt like I cut you off.
No, I am perfectly fine with you introducing the show.
Oh, okay. You went, and I was like, oh no.
No.
I feel like a jerk.
No. I was just like, oh, wait, we're on. It took a second for my brain to catch up with what was going on. That's all.
Like, and go.
So anyways, welcome back to...
Wait. What? Sports.
Okay.
Welcome to the dark side. I'll bring you cookies next week.
So anyways, part of the reason why my brain was taking a minute to catch up was because we decided to just jump back in with part 2
Yes.
of auto sports.
Because it is so in-depth.
Well, and we jumped around our notes so much that we were like, there's no way we're going to remember when we come in to record next week where we stopped and what we did and what we covered. So we may as well just record episode 2 today.
Yeah, just keep the momentum going that we're on.
Well,
especially now that we got Dr. Robinson all up in this little groove we got going here.
Oh yeah.
we reeled him in a little bit.
We did.
Although
you
we
did.
may lose him when we start talking about Herbie the Love Bug. But anyways.
It's possible.
It's not gonna be no little bug over here. All right.
I'm gonna get you a little model and put it right there in front of your computer, next to your Bubba Wallace Jr. figure. Funko Pop, I should say. Let me say it right.
Okay.
Funko
Nothing goes next to Bubba Wallace. Okay.
But Herbie's the classic.
He's the introduction that most kids got to this, unless you grew up around a racetrack.
I mean,
Could we move on?
We do only. Okay. So, anyway, I'm Gina.
I'm Amy.
I'm Dr. Robinson.
And we are back with more auto racing.
Yes. So where do we want to jump in at?
We stopped at GT racing. We had just done a brief overview of GT or Grand Touring.
Yes.
So as we were referencing Herbie, the love bug, we're referencing him because his very first movie, the very first 1964 Herbie movie,
Wow.
was about a little Volkswagen VW Bug
A punch bug.
that raced on the European Grand Tour.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He was retired, and it had a mind of his own.
Think of Christine, but kid-friendly.
He was very cute and funny.
He was cute, quirky.
Okay. And for those of you who never truly got into the movies the way I did as a kid,
Nerd.
I loved Herbie. Just so you know, there are other tie-ins because, you know, they did a remake with the redhead that did all the
Lindsay Lohan. Yeah.
The redhead that did all the Disney remakes.
Oosh, I feel like you feel some kind of way about her. Okay, moving on. That's a conversation for another day. We're going to stay focused
just
today.
She remade every one of my favorite movies.
Parent Trap.
And I was like... Anyways.
Freaky Friday.
Your face is like, I hate that lady. She messed up all my paper.
So anyways.
Wasn't ready.
The original movies.
Shoot.
If you were a real Disney person
Mm-hmm.
and like really loved your Disney movies growing up,
Right.
do you remember Little Mermaid?
Yes.
Do you remember Scuttle?
Yes.
Listen to Scuttle's voice. It is the voice of the mechanic from the Herbie movies.
And you know what? When you showed me his face, and I was like, he's been in so much stuff, and I never put those two things together.
He's a character actor. He's been in so many things, and they drew him to look like him. His name is Buddy something.
Yeah.
And I was just like, but like you can tell when he does like the little like Scuttle singing, la 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 la, you can tell that it's his voice.
Funny.
So, anyways.
A fact you will never unknow.
I am full of randomness.
You are. That's why we get along so. That's why Dr. Robinson's grabbing his face right now.
I live for moments where he's trying to physically scrunch his face together. Not
Right.
just pulling his facial expressions together, but literally grabbing his face.
Putting
with
his hand
hair
on his face.
and pulling his face in. I just live for those moments.
Life is worth
Anyway.
living now. Go ahead.
So, The Grand Tours, again, they're really long races, but they have all sorts of cars.
Mm-hmm.
You will have every type of car.
So it's not limited to manufacturer like it is in stock car racing.
Nope.
Okay.
Also, these cars will have, quote, similar performance specifications, but they don't have hard, fast specifications.
So they all have to generally follow some basic stuff, but they can kind of
They have to have all the
customize.
safety stuff. They have to have all of the,
got it.
but they don't. I've watched races where I'm like, wait a second, what is that car doing on the track?
And it's that means it's pretty obvious that there's something different about that vehicle. Not like NASCAR where you're like they all sound similar.
Right, so you will actually have like a Honda Fit racing next to, which by the way, in Europe is called a Honda Kick. I love the Honda Kick.
That's a cooler name. We should have that name.
So you will have a Honda, okay,
Right.
racing next to a VW, racing next to a Porsche, racing next to
A Maserati.
yes,
That is
actually,
crazy. So whatever you can soup up, you can drive essentially in these races.
yes.
Hmm.
There has to be a quote street legal version of it someplace.
So it can't be something that you just created from the ground up.
Right. It can't be, a kit car that you made for yourself.
Right.
But you're not limited the way you are in NASCAR.
Got it.
Yeah, there's a street legal version of this. My car has nothing from its original interiors left in it. But
Still says Corolla on the back.
exactly. Okay.
Technically speaking.
Technically. So I really like GT racing.
Mm-hmm. More than NASCAR?
I don't get to watch it as often.
Okay.
So NASCAR, if you can get the stations in,
Fair enough.
is on every weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Almost all year long. Okay? If I had cable, I could watch it whenever I wanted to, for the most part.
Okay.
Because Fox Sports 1, it's on Fox, it's
Right. It's on Fox.
NBC
yeah,
Sports.
So it's not just tied to one affiliate as far as
No,
like...
so
No.
Fox and NBC both have contracts for NASCAR.
Right.
Oh.
And they get specific races. The first half of the season is on Fox. The second half of the season is on NBC.
But I know the Daytona 500 is exclusively on Fox.
because it's the beginning of the season.
Right.
Ah, okay. Okay.
So the first half of the season's on Fox. Second half of the season is on NBC. And if a race runs long or whatever, it winds up on their cable station, so NBC Sports or Fox Sports 1.
Oh.
So,
Got it.
yeah. And then there is an actual auto racing station as well on cable.
Oh, my.
So, yeah.
I don't think I knew
which-
that. I scroll through those stations so quick. I'm
There's
paying
a
attention.
portion of me that kind of wants to see if they do more European races, because it's kind of like soccer breaking into the American market.
Mm-hmm.
There's more and more people wanting the European races as well. I mean, to the point where Miami just held a Grand Prix Formula One race.
Wow.
They based it around their stadium. It was super cool looking. They brought in all these yachts that they then like built up platforms of water around. Because they weren't actually in water, they were sitting, in a parking lot.
Yeah.
So you could buy yacht tickets to watch from a yacht.
That is insane. What?
This race that was going around the stadium and the stadium parking lot.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
And like through the streets of Miami. Yeah.
Nuts.
So Miami did it big because they're one of the few that was able to bring in an F1 race.
Right. I mean, think about the space and the setup you have to really be able to pull that off and do it through the city and not be completely obstructing everything there is to obstruct. There's no way you can pull that off in Cleveland.
Well, that's why, like, So the Cleveland Grand Prix wasn't technically, I think they were actually F1 cars, but they were like on the lowest circuit of F1 racing. So as we were saying with like NASCAR, you have to work your way up into different cars. Same thing goes on the F1 circuits. So you start off as an F1 racer, but with a small engine F1. And then you work your way up to the engines that can go 400, 500 miles per
Didn't
hour.
you tell me there was like a F4, F3, F2, and then you get to the upper echelon of
I'm
F.
not certain how they actually like number
Level
them or
it
whatever,
off.
but they like you start off with a certain CC amount of engine power.
Oh, it's like Mario Kart.
yes, yes. So when in Mario Kart, when you're talking about like 10 CCs,
Yeah.
it's cubic centimeters of power. That's how they measure engines.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Speaking of networks, as far as the Formula One racing, ESPN has some of the rights to Formula One racing.
I want to know
But
where to
it's
find
late-
GT.
yeah. Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah, get
I
on
want
it.
GT. I don't. The Formula One is okay, but to me, it's like.
Meh.
To me, it just looks like a bunch of suicidal people racing around a track. You don't have enough car around you.
Listen, anybody who watches auto racing thinks it's a whole bunch of suicidal people who just like, even if it's NASCAR, they're like, oh my God, all they want to do is crash.
Look,
Who would want to drive that fast? I mean, I would, but
I would love to do race car driving. I don't want to be in Formula One where my head is sticking out of the car.
that is very true. That's another distinct difference.
And that's actually one of the bigger differences between Indy and F1 is that in Indy you're slightly more upright, in F1 you actually
Down
are
in the-
lower.
So
It's like the difference between canoeing and kayaking.
Got it.
So for the GT racing, CBS Sports Network actually broadcasts the GT.
And you know what?
racing.
I have Paramount
But
Plus,
I was
so I can
just about to say that.
probably actually find the GT racing.
You probably could. You probably could.
So,
We could, so I can watch it with you.
but you know, personally, again, I think anytime that you're flying around a track at 300 miles per hour and your head is sticking outside of your car, probably not a great thing. That's just personally me. I know that they've got a ton of safety. I mean, like if you,
But
there
you
are
don't-
actually shows where they show you. So there was a Modern Marvels episode from the late 90s, early 2000s.
I love that show.
Where they showed how they make the seats for race cars and F1 cars. Like how they actually go about the molding process and things. Which is basically a vacuum sealed molding, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
There are a couple other shows that have recently shown more of that, and I can't remember what they were.
Let me know. I'll see if I can find like some YouTube clips or something.
Right. Again, full of random facts, full of random things. I can't always remember where they came from.
What happens when you're random?
I mean, this afternoon I was watching Antiques Road Trip, and I watched a David Attenborough thing, and I watched a thing on PBS that stars one of my friends from high school. So, completely cooking show. So, PBS has this new show called The Great American Recipe, and one of my
I've
friends
seen
from
that.
high school is on there.
Ooh.
Yes, he now owns a barbecue sauce line in Kentucky.
Sounds like it's time for some free samples.
Well, he was more of a friend of a friend. Like, we all hung out in the same friend group.
Okay.
But, yeah. So
I still count that. But anyway.
Yes. So, but anyways, like, all of that, like, that was just 3 hours this afternoon.
Wow.
So you can imagine, like, the
A whole
complete
week.
randomness that I have in everything I watch and do and whatever.
So this
So-
brings me to a point that I thought about after the first episode about auto racing. How physically in condition do you have to be to
So-
be able to be a driver in any of these auto races?
So that's one of the big things that's like a question that people are like, oh, they're not really athletes. And
That's
it's
what
like,
it made me think of it. Because like the golf
it's
we
kinda
were
like
talking
the-
about.
It's kind of like horse racing where they're like, well, the horse is the athlete, not the jockey. Auto racing isn't really a sport. They're not really athletes. Well, okay, let me tell you. Only in the last 5 years has the technology been good enough for there to be a full diabetic race car driver to make it through NASCAR races.
You know what? That makes so much sense. I never thought about that.
So he was racing on the Cup Series. I don't know if he still does. I don't remember his name. I remember his car was green. Because I remember random things like that.
Yeah,
I'm
you
certain
do.
Eli can look it up and say, NASCAR driver with diabetes.
Right.
And
Hint, hint. Not.
And there was a really big worry when he first came onto the series, on Xfinity Series racing, that he was going to have a diabetic emergency
While he
while
was
in
driving.
the middle of the race.
Huh. How long does it typically last? Like, without any
If it's a
delays?
500,
It's 500 laps, right?
Yeah.
so 500 is 500 miles. It depends on how
Oh.
long the track is. If it's a long track, so there are long tracks and short tracks in
So
NASCAR.
his name is Ryan Reed.
Okay,
Ryan
Ryan
Reed.
Reed.
Okay.
There are long tracks and short tracks.
Thank you.
In NASCAR. So there are tracks that are only a mile, and then there are tracks that are almost 2 miles.
Oh. Okay.
So they have a lap counter in the screen to tell you how many laps equals that 500 miles.
Got it. Okay.
With no delays, if it's a 500-mile race, like the Daytona 500, it could be 2 to 3 hours.
Oh, yeah, that's a long time.
In a car, in the sun. Daytona is Florida.
True. Geared up to nobody's
Routinely-
business.
Right. Routinely, they are racing in areas that are really hot anyways. Texas, Arizona, Nevada.
Mm-hmm.
The car temperature, and remember, they've been pared down to base necessities because of weight.
Right.
The car temperature can be 95 plus degrees.
What?
Not to mention having to have the helmet and all of the anti-fire stuff and
Yeah.
everything else.
So it's just trapping heat.
So you've got some fans and you've got like cooling towels.
So you
and
don't
things
even
like
have
that.
AC in these cars. Did not know that either. I mean, that explains like when they take their helmets off, they look like they've been swimming across the French Riviera, but you just think it's sweat because you're wearing a helmet versus like you have no air in there except for a couple of fans.
So they have air, but it's not like a powerful air conditioning unit like
Right.
we have in our cars.
Right. It's not like a AC like you and I have or Dr. Robinson. Keep going.
So
He was watching you like,
I know.
yes.
I know. And that's why it was delayed too, because he's like, I'm going to make sure she knows what this is for.
Feel this ding.
So anyways,
Mm-hmm.
I'm certain it's payback for make him scrunch his face. So, so anyways, they will talk about like if their air goes out,
Mm-hmm.
God forbid. Because there are cars where they'll be racing and all of a sudden like they're like, man, the temperature has spiked in here.
So do they have thermometers in the cars?
So everything has digital readouts. I mean, everything. In fact, they don't even really have speedometers in their car.
Oh.
So, I don't want to get into too much.
Right.
Because, we have a friend that will like.
I'm
kill
21
us.
questions, so you gotta rein me in.
But just as an indicator, they have a color-coded system for when they come onto pit row
Okay.
to tell them if they are going too fast, too slow, or just the right speed. Because they will get penaltied if they're going too fast. They will have to sit out a lap. They will have to take a penalty lap, which means they have to go around the pit boxes at pit speed once.
Oh.
Or if if it's deemed that they're going too slow, which doesn't generally happen.
Right.
Because they could be a danger to the cars trying to come in behind them.
Right. That makes sense.
And so but instead of it having an actual speed, it literally is just color indicators on the dashboard. And it's green, orange, red.
Wow.
And you have to be in the orange area in order to come into pit row.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah. So, they've got some indicator. And when you're watching, they can show you everything.
Naturally, but being in the car.
In the car, there's not as many indicators in the car. All of that information, though, is being tracked by a computer and is being sent straight back to the pit boss.
Got it. Okay. We'll have to do a whole episode about the pit crew because I feel like there could potentially be an episode on these people because they are specialists
in what they do.
Okay. Sorry, I'm gonna make a note of
As
that.
much training as the drivers have had, the pit crews on all of this type of racing have had as much, if not more, training.
That's nice.
And there are rules that change every year in racing. Major one that changed a few years ago in NASCAR was how much time a car has to fix damage before it can, like, it has to be able to fix the damage in an accident within X amount of time in order to come back to the track. Otherwise, they're out for the rest of the day.
Oh, like you can actually be out of the race because you just have too much damage done to your car.
And there's only, and you can only fix what you, like, so they give you X amount of time to fix things, and some things are deemed to be only things that you can fix in the pit box, and sometimes they are like, oh no, you have to go back to the garage, and then you have X amount of time to fix things from the garage. It used to be, at one point in time, anything that needed the garage, you were out. And then it was, at one point in time, as long as you could get your car back onto the track at some point.
You can still.
But at the same time, there wasn't as much of a drive to get back out on the track because there was no point to it if you weren't going to be in the top X amount of finishers. So they've made rule changes that have given people more incentive to come
back and not just be like, we're done.
Right. So, but there's all sorts of things, like you can only do so much to your car in the pit, and so much has to be done elsewhere, and whatever.
Right.
So
going back to the health part of it, though, so it's just not become a thing where that's correct, yeah. Because when you think about it, it's not like a diabetic can stop and eat a snack in the middle of a race. You know,
they do have drinks usually. They now have contraptions, so they didn't used to. Like back in the petty days when the cars were square boxes,
right?
I mean, if you go back and you look at those old races, or the race where Earnhardt Sr. unfortunately lost his life, the way the cars looked, you're like, those were race cars?
Right.
So they now have places where they can have drinks, and they have like these straws that come up the inside of their suit that they can hold in the mouthpiece and drink. So that makes it more likely that because they all need water and stuff. It's so hot in the cars now. It's so, ridiculous. So, and the fire retardant suits and everything else. So they do have that ability. And yes, he has a continuous glucose monitor.
Yes.
If his glucose drops too low because he is a type 1 diabetic, he has to pit and get emergency rations. Exactly. And
that's
unfortunately,
wild.
it's wherever he is, he winds up having to pit. Even if it's not a yellow flag.
Right.
If it's not a caution.
Wow.
But the amount of horsepower these cars are pulling at this point, they actually do have G-forces on them.
Yeah.
So it's like training to be a pilot or, a fighter pilot. They don't have quite the number of G-forces that you would as, say, like a Top Gun, but they have G-forces against them, especially going around the outside curves.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's just like when you take a turn too hard and your body goes...
Right. Now imagine doing that at like 150 miles per hour.
No, thank you. I can't. That explains why you never see like an overweight NASCAR driver in the sense of like a Babe Ruth. A Babe Ruth.
There are.
Is there?
Yeah.
How does he fit in the car? Oh, sorry, this is going to sound real mean, but how does he fit in the car comfortably? Because it's so much protective stuff and all your, you know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry if that sounded really mean, but I didn't know how else to say that.
So there's an older driver. He just finally retired. He would do commentary and then race like 3 races a year.
Really? Yeah.
He did commentary for Fox.
Okay.
Him and his brother. I'm trying to remember. Was it Rusty? Anyways, yeah, I think it was Rusty Wallace.
Did you find it?
His name is Michael Waltrip.
Waltrip. Okay.
So
you were off by just a little bit.
Just a little bit. I knew it was a wall something. Well, because I was thinking his brother. Because I was trying to remember like both names.
Yeah.
But yes, he is a little bit on the rounder side of things because he's older.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
It was always slightly entertaining when they would show him sliding in through the window, Dukes of Hazzard style. So,
And you know what? You bring up a good point real quick. Like, they don't have the traditional, like, handles on the cars. That's how you get in is through. Because is the car door sealed shut?
yes.
Okay. That's why I have to go through the window. I
In
never...
order to protect the roll cage.
It's weird. I thought about it, but I didn't think about it.
And they have a much bigger reinforced roll cage than the roll cages that we have in our cars. So one of the bars actually goes through the middle of the door.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. 'Cause, you know, for the non-knowledgeable observer, I was like, they just do it because it looks cool.
So
look at me.
So for those of you who were paying attention, you did hear a ding. We were on a shortened amount of time to try to get this one done, and we're probably going to actually
Need a part 3
attempt to record another half hour next week and sew them together
to make the
to
perfect
make
Frankenstein.
a 1 hour Frankenstein episode. As much as Eli is giving me the evil eye because he doesn't want to do it.
But he's such a wonderful producer that he's willing to do it for us.
We'll bring you cookies.
Remember, you're on the dark side now.
Oh gosh.
We'll bring you cookies.
I'll bring you Lorna Doones. It's your favorite cookie. I'll bring you Costco cookies. Oh, even better. He was in the moment we said cookies. Anyway.
We love you, Eli. Oh,
Yes, we do.
Anyways, he's telling us to wrap it up for this half hour.
Yes.
So hopefully we will have an actual hour show that is posted.
2.1.
Right. And, you know, it will just be a little blip here
Right.
in the middle of us talking. But we appreciate you if we don't get that extra half hour zipped in, Eli. And
Shots fired.
we appreciate you guys listening to us, and we will continue to tease out more information because, again, the issue here is that everything that I bring up, Gina has more questions about. And this is actually how this whole show started.
Yes.
And, you know, if we ever get around to doing things that make Gina say, what?
That'll be like a 4-hour episode.
As our general show that's not sports related, this is exactly what this will be like.
Yeah, pretty much. But on that note.
So thank you guys very much. I am Amy.
I'm Gina.
Really,
Ding.
Eli?
I'm Dr. Robinson.
You're telling us to wrap it up. You're not even paying attention.
Uh-huh.
We'll see you guys on the next one. Bye, humans. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, we're back. 1, 2, 3. Welcome back to Wait. What? Sports. I have to do the arms every time.
You
Like the
do.
YMCA arms, and I don't know why I feel compelled to do that, but I do.
It's not like we're being video recorded.
I know. It's like how you talk with your hands. Like, just certain things require extra emphasis.
I don't know. She goes full body on the title of the show.
I do. Our title is awesome. Anyway, I'm Gina.
I'm Amy.
I'm Dr. Robinson.
And we welcome you back for a mishmash of stuff today. We left you all wanting with the last episode.
So last time we were in the studio, we had a scheduling snafu.
Yes.
And we wound up only being able to record a half hour for one of the episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So that we're just going to call episode 18.1.
Point 1. Yes.
And originally we wanted Dr. Robinson to stitch things together, but he hemmed and hawed and...
Oh, you're being so PC because I was going to say pitched a fit.
Could we?
Is that your new thing?
Could we, please?
And anyways, so I came up with this brilliant idea of just posting 2 shows in the week, one called 18.1 and this one, 18.2.
2. Yes.
Mainly because we've pretty much finished up a lot of what we were going to talk about with auto racing.
Without going into too much.
Mr. Donald being here.
Yes.
Our friend who is a NASCAR nut. And we decided, or we had promised him previously, that when we did go in depth on NASCAR,
Yes.
we would include him.
It's so funny that you say nut because I was thinking enthusiast, but at the same time, it's like, that's not a strong enough word. Enthusiast is way too
PC.
Right. Facts, indeed, ma'am.
So don't you dare pick up that bell, Eli.
It's still on topic. Can we?
I'm just putting the bell down. That's it. Okay.
We just get so used to getting ding happy.
Proceed.
Thank you. Thank you. So, Amy, where would you like to start?
So, we are actually going to start off this episode with a little bit of auto racing, but I want to preface everything today by saying I came up with this idea in the middle of the week to just pull some of these smaller news stories that I had seen that made me go, huh?
Yeah.
In sports. And we would talk about them. And of course, when you talk about it, it's probably going to be like 2 stories because when you talk about them, you start to get in depth about figuring them out.
Right.
It takes a little bit longer than, you expected. But I did not actually tell Gina anything about these stories.
You guys are going to get unfiltered.
You are going to get
Raw.
genuine Gina reactions because the past episodes, while they were Gina reactions, a lot of the stuff we had actually talked about previously at some point in time over the last year and a half of just us knowing each other as friends.
Right.
And seeing sports and asking questions and answering things. So today you actually get the full Gina enthusiastically going, what?
Oh, get ready.
So the first story is actually about auto racing. And this is a form of auto racing that I didn't really know was actually out there and kind of getting big at this point. I knew that among the auto industry professionals, this was happening, and there's all sorts of reasons for it. But I didn't realize that it's starting to get a following, and that is Formula E racing.
Formula E.
Any idea what the E stands for?
Electric.
It's
electric. Dun, 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 dun,
so
dun,
they are
dun,
Formula
dun.
One cars with electric motors.
So, okay. I'm gonna let you go into detail because, there's already questions brewing. Get ready. Where's my pen and paper?
Well, no, go ahead and ask whatever the question was that I saw something pop in your head very briefly, so go ahead.
Do they go as fast?
I don't believe they are hitting the same top speeds.
Okay.
Although they may be at this point.
I mean, I only ask because I don't know much about electric vehicles, but I don't know if they have that same ability to create that much power.
So
is the engine that strong? Maybe that's too in-depth of a question.
So they do have, they rate things on an equivalency to the gas motors.
Okay.
And they are a similar, quote, motor size, which means that they should have a similar torque.
Okay.
The question always had been, how do you get them to go that fast for as long as needed?
Right.
Which is why I said it for years it's been something within the auto industry.
Okay. Like they were talking about it.
Or they were doing it, but it wasn't something that spectators watched. It's kind of like when they were developing things for NASA.
Gotcha.
Or, early prototypes of Elon Musk and, the rockets, right? The very, very early prototypes, nobody even knew he was working on it.
Right. How do you keep that under wraps?
Look, until you actually make one that's full size.
Nobody knows.
Nobody needs to know, right?
Touche.
So only once he had a full-sized rocket that he wanted to attach things to and started testing did he announce, because you can't hide a full-size rocket launch.
I can't even imagine. The U.S. government's like, what's happening? Where did this rocket come from?
It would be something like straight out of Austin Powers and Dr. Evil, okay?
That's going to be stuck in my head all day.
Which, by the way, side note, Jeff Bezos' rocket.
Yeah.
Look at it and then look at Dr. Evil's.
No.
I swear to God.
Google.
I mean, when he put the first one up, the one before Michael Strahan went up in.
Yeah.
People were actually like making comments and memes with the pictures side by side.
I was about to say, did they make him look like Dr. Evil?
No. The rockets. Because if you've never seen the Blue Horizon, I think is what Amazon's version of things, Jeff Bezos' rocket's called, they look quite phallic.
It does.
And if you remember, Dr. Evil and Austin Powers had a rocket that was not only phallic, but had 2 little orbs at the bottom. So
That's crazy. First of all, there's a model of it you can buy, but I digress. It does look very phallic.
So, anyways, that was just, the side note. But,
Penis rocket. Sorry. I had to do it. I deserve that. Go ahead.
It would have been, had they tried to launch a full-size rocket without letting anybody know, it really would have been like Dr. Evil's rocket coming out of a volcano, right?
Right. They would be like, is this for a movie?
Well, no, it like, you sit there and check yourself, like, am I in a movie? Like, okay. So, similarly, there have been e-race cars being built.
Yeah.
I know that there are e-go-kart tracks out there. I mean, they've been around for decades, but the races aren't as long.
Yeah.
So they've been working on this, and they've been doing it on test tracks.
Okay.
Right? And yesterday, ABC News, their weather segment, was being done from the Brooklyn Formula E race.
Wow.
And it was crazy because, like, you're listening to this chick give the weather, right?
Right.
Like, one of their affiliates from someplace else in the country, not New York, had come in to do the weather while, Ginger Z is on vacation and whatever. And
Ginger. I mean, it's a very weather girl name. But I'm just
you
saying.
never watched Ginger Z?
No.
Oh, she's good. She used to be a storm chaser. Anyways, so they had this affiliate out there, and as she's doing the weather, you're like, what are all these weird sounds behind her? Because you couldn't tell. Like, they kept saying she was in Brooklyn. I was like, but it sounds like she's at Coney Island.
Yeah.
It's the sound of the e-cars.
What do they sound like? So is it like lasers, like a laser sound? Like
It sounds like dolphin songs
what?
as they're going around the
And
track.
you know what? It's so funny because when you say that, e-cars are supposed to be, electric cars are supposed to be quiet. So, but that makes sense if they're going that fast. Some noise is going to be made.
Well, not only that, but like one thing that they have tried to force the electric auto industry around the world. I think in Europe they actually do this already. Street legal e-cars have to make noise.
Really?
If you're blind, the only way you know a car is coming is through hearing it.
Oh, that's a good point.
So when the Prius first came out, it was too quiet compared to all the other cars on the road.
Wow.
So they actually made a thing in the front bumper that makes a noise so that deaf people can hear it.
Or hard of hearing. Wow. It's funny.
Or so that blind people can hear it.
If you don't live that experience every day, you don't become aware of that until, wow.
So I don't think that they've actually gotten to the point where it's now a regulation, or maybe it's a regulation that's pending in the U.S.
Yeah.
But yes, your e-cars have to make some sort of noise so that as they are approaching a stop or approaching a light or an intersection, people who are blind
can know it's there.
Can know that it's there.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's so quiet that you have no idea that a car is approaching you.
So what about... Okay, no, that's a tangent. Never mind.
So anyways...
We don't have unlimited time.
Again, these cars are going so fast.
Yeah.
That the motor itself isn't making noise. So it's not going vroom as it's going by.
Right.
Right? You don't have the traditional race car noises that they actually like spotlight on the NASCAR races, where they actually will have the announcers go quiet for like 30 seconds just to hear the roar of the cars.
Really?
And they have decibel meters.
That's a thing?
It's a thing in the TV broadcasts, yes.
Ah.
So they're not making that kind of noise.
Right.
But think of all the other parts in the car that are moving that still make friction.
Right.
So all of those frictionated parts.
Right.
And I don't think that's a word. I think I made that up.
Amy's with the Merriam-Webster Dictionary by Amy.
But all of those parts that make friction are going to make some amount of noise.
Yeah.
Especially when you're going
that fast.
Now, again, I'm not certain of the actual speed speeds on them. I couldn't find anything that had the most recent up-to-date information for
Okay.
how fast they actually go, but they do achieve similar speeds to the actual Formula One cars.
Do they look like Formula One cars?
They are Formula One cars with electric engines in them.
Okay, gotcha.
So they look exactly the same as the basic Formula One cars.
Now, did it start in Europe and come here? Because it seems to be a big thing with a lot of this kind of racing. It's a European.
So most of the F1 car manufacturers are European, and therefore, a lot of the e-sports manufacturers are European.
Okay. I thought so. I had a feeling.
And I should have written it down because they were talking about it this morning on ABC as well.
Huh.
I can't remember which manufacturer it was that they were talking to, but they said, they've been doing this for 10 years with Formula E.
Interesting.
And like I said, it's like when they develop things for NASA, and then the next thing you know, you're sleeping on memory foam.
Exactly. And you're like, where did this come
And
from?
it came from the seats that they made for the rockets and
I
the
guess
space
you don't
shuttles.
think about
And the absorption power for the G's and everything. That that was a pipeline that came through. That's how we got memory foam.
Interesting.
That's
you don't
how we
think
got
about the
Tang.
developmental phases of things.
Well, do you like Tang?
I used to.
Do you like Tang? Anybody like Tang? Okay. I love Tang.
I haven't had it in years.
I haven't had it in years either, but I was a kid that I hated orange juice. Okay. My mom worried about that,
Yeah.
especially because I would get strep throat every year.
So you need
Okay.
your vitamin C.
My mom would insist on it, and the doctor was like, "That's not the case, but okay." And he was like, "If you're really that worried about it, does she drink orange Kool-Aid?" And my mom's like, "Yes." He's like, "Give her Tang." Okay, so I don't know what the difference is in formulations and whatever between Tang and actual orange juice. What I do know is that Tang originally was developed to go up in space
Crazy.
with the original astronauts.
That could be like a Wait
Because
What
it's
episode all by itself.
Dehydrated orange juice for the most part that you just
Wow.
rehydrate,
So
okay?
there's something they remove from it.
They take all the moisture out of it.
Yeah.
And then it's just a powdered concentrate. And then you add your desired amount of water to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Customized.
So, but I'm just saying that, like, these are things that were originally developed for astronauts and made their way
To the mainstream.
to the mainstream. Same thing's happening with this e-racing. Okay. Just like, actually, certain things come out of NASCAR and, as we said, other auto sports like Demolition Derby and the roll cages.
Right.
NASCAR and the roll cages and the reinforcing points. They are taking things that they're learning from the auto e-racing
Yeah.
and they are applying them to regular cars. So, if you think about it, if you're doing a Formula One race, basically, in an electric vehicle, you are trying to figure out how to get the most battery life out of that so that you don't have to
Absolutely.
do too many pit stops, taking the battery out and putting the battery back in, or trying to charge it. I don't know how they do the pit stops.
I was thinking that in my head,
They
like,
weren't showing that on the TV.
probably
so-
because it's not quite probably as
I don't-
efficient
yeah.
or pretty or impressive, I guess, as like when you see NASCAR with the tires.
Well, and I'm certain, again, if I had 3 million stations and not just broadcast TV, I
Yeah.
would be able to find e-racing on one of the, the
1
very-
million ESPN channels.
Yes. Or even, a European sports channel or something.
Yeah.
Okay? But, and then I would have a better idea. But I just happened to see it on ABC News,
What an odd
this
thing.
morning.
Why broadcast from there? Sorry, my brain is just like, that's a random location to do a sports broadcast from.
Well, no, it was the weather.
Or the
Yeah.
weather forecast. Well, this
Well-
is even weirder, but
So a lot of times they take the weather people and they put them out on a location of something that's new or interesting or whatever.
to make people like aware, like, look
Yeah.
at this. Okay.
So, this morning when they were doing an overview of it, and the guy said, we've been doing this for 10 years. He said, the goal is to take things that we're learning from the e-racing and move them into e-production line cars.
Right.
And I forget again which manufacturer it was. All I remember is that it was European, and that doesn't help. But he said that they've actually gained in the last 10 years over 70 kilometers on their battery.
Wow. Did he say what kind of batteries they are?
Well, they on the battery life of their production e-cars.
Oh, okay.
They have gained 70 based on what they've learned in the racing.
From the racing. Oh, okay.
They have gained 70 kilometers worth of, and it may have even been more than that, but that's the number that sticks out in my head. And I was like, wow, this is kind of cool. I can't remember if it was Ferrari. I think it was their Ferrari pace car.
Let me see.
But they showed the inside of the car and how electronically controlled everything was in the cockpit, and how you basically were using computer controls.
So the company you're referring to is Spark Dalera.
Spark?
That was not who was on the TV this morning.
Okay.
I would have remembered that.
Spark? Is that a
But-
foreign company?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Spark
But I'll
Dalera.
find out what was on TV this morning.
Was
Proceed.
it our ABC? Or like the
No, it was
national
national.
ABC? Okay.
National.
Got it.
But basically, even the pace cars they use on the e-racing are e-cars. So, every race has a pace car
Right.
that is what controls the speed before the race and during warning flags.
Right.
And after the race. And you have to stay behind the pace car until it comes off the track. And so even their pace car for the races
That's cool.
are
Electric.
So like I said, I think it was Ferrari. That's the name that sticks out in my head, but I don't remember. I'm certain that, we can find the video and post it.
I think I might have it. Was it July 17th?
Today is the 17th, yes.
Okay, so I think I might have found it.
So we should be able to post that to our website, to our Facebook page and all of that, and we will make
social
sure that we
media.
get all that
Right.
for you.
Let me bookmark
But
this.
that was something that, I did not fully realize was out there. I knew it was there, but I didn't realize it was starting to get a following.
Right.
And I definitely didn't realize that they had done 10 years worth of races in Brooklyn.
So is Brooklyn like their home base? Do they do it in other parts of the country now?
So they say they do races in at least 15 cities around the world.
Okay.
They didn't say which cities, but the fact that the Brooklyn one is 10 years old, and they literally
Right.
just race down the streets of Brooklyn. They close off streets in
Oh,
Brooklyn.
see, I was about to ask that. Did they build like some kind of raceway?
Because that's the way that F1 is run.
True,
right?
true.
All the Grand Prix, a lot of European cities,
They close off the actual city.
Actual city streets.
So they were running today through the Red Hook neighborhood, which is in Brooklyn.
Okay. Cool.
So yeah, it's crazy to me, but what they are learning from those FE races, they are going to be able to then put into the cars that they make.
Right.
And e-cars, electronic cars, are way more popular in Europe than they are here. Because even when we were only paying $3 a gallon for gas,
Yeah.
they were paying the equivalent of $7 to $10 per gallon.
Ooh, wait. What?
They always have. They've always had higher gas prices than we
But
do.
all of their
They have higher regulations. They have
Okay. They don't produce any oil anywhere over there, do they?
That's the issue. That's part of the issue why everybody's stuff has gone up is because
Yeah.
most of the oil production is in Russia.
Mm-hmm.
And with the Russian conflict, people and companies pulling everything out of Russia and saying we're not going to use Russian oil.
Right.
It made all of the oil
Skyrocket.
prices skyrocket around the world because all of a sudden demand was 20 times the supply.
Right. So it makes me
So-
wonder, just because I know here in Ohio, they make you pay a fee for an electric car. Do they have to do that in other cities in Brooklyn? Like when they go to register these cars?
You mean in other areas of the
Yeah.
country? So, yes. I believe most places either you are still paying a fee, flat fee, or they are taxing your fill up with
Okay.
your. That's the thing
the
that
charging
Ohio
station
hasn't
or
done
whatever.
is tax the charging stations.
Okay.
I believe you are right as far as Ferrari. Oh no, you said didn't you say
She said Ferrari.
I said
You said
Ferrari.
okay.
I thought it was Ferrari this week that they were talking about.
It was Ferrari this
Okay.
week.
Okay.
But the thing is, you said about European manufacturers for the actual Formula E.
Mm-hmm.
It was Audi and BMW, but they pulled out.
Really?
Yeah.
So, like, a lot of the like I said, a lot of the Formula One cars are made by European manufacturers,
Right.
and therefore
Makes
a lot of
sense.
the Formula E's are as well. But that doesn't by any means mean that they all are.
Exactly.
Because there are Honda Formula Ones.
Well, Honda's not an American company, is it?
It is a Japanese company.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's why it's not European either.
True, but it's not American. So.
So, but there are, lots of manufacturers out there. It's just, the majority. It's not like racing in NASCAR. Like the biggest racing in the States is NASCAR, and NASCAR has 3 manufacturers,
and
and
that's
that's it.
So I'm just researching this.
He's all into it now.
Mercedes.
I know. He's all like, now I got this.
Oh, watch me.
So Mercedes was one of the actual other manufacturers, but they pulled out to concentrate on Formula One.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay. So it makes me wonder, with this, if Formula E keeps growing the way it is, are you going to see like a NASCAR circuit of electric cars? Is it going to branch out into other, especially since NASCAR is trying to, keep up with the Joneses now to a great degree?
Here's the thing.
I mean, people like the vroom vroom.
Formula E still isn't anywhere near viable as far as an actual like race circuit.
Okay.
It's still really
It's in its-
about the research gained from it.
Got it.
A Formula One race, a ticket into the grandstands might be thousands of dollars.
Oof.
A Formula E, you're looking at maybe 150.
Yeah. And that's just because they have to pay for the...
That's just to pay for the grandstands.
Exactly.
Okay. So that was what I found. That was a story about racing that I went, huh?
Wow.
So the one that made me start pulling information and saying we need to do a,
in the news.
yeah. And honestly, these are all below the fold stories, as they would have said back in the day when you actually had a paper newspaper and you had a
Oh,
fold.
I was like, below the fold. What are you talking about? You're letting your age show.
Look, people, I actually had to take classes on how to read newspapers when I was in school. Okay,
Stop it.
we did. We had to do things. We learned how to read the paper, how to refer to it, and how to glean which stories were editorials and which ones were research based.
That was real?
yes.
What class was this?
It was part of our social studies classes.
What?
Yep. It
My.
was well, nowadays they would throw it into, the librarians
Yeah.
world and make it part of, the information studies and whatever. But anyways, the story that made me think I really got to figure out what this is all about was, and I'd seen this both on BBC News and CNN, and I happened to print the CNN story because it had a lot more information in it. The BBC headline was a little bit better because it was like, Tiger Woods disses the Saudi Arabian League. Okay. Which just makes me laugh because the BBC, and if those of you who don't know, that's the British Broadcasting Company, uses the word
Disses. Okay, that's when you're trying to be cool.
So anyways.
I feel like that would have been clickbait. Like, that's not a real article.
Right? And I didn't really click on it until I saw it on CNN as well.
Yeah.
So CNN's headline, Tiger Woods says LIV golfers have turned their backs on the PGA.
What is LIV?
That was my first question. I was like, what is the LIV?
Right.
And so that's why I had to click on it and find out. And then I found out that it's the Saudi Arabian League.
I think when you sent that out to me, I was like, they play, I mean, it sounds stupid, but they play golf like that in Saudi Arabia? It seems like such an American European
So actually,
sport.
this is going to lead into something that
White
I want to do
European.
a whole, show on is sponsorships in different sports.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the sponsors for golf and for golf events and for golfers are aimed at very well-to-do, wealthy people. I mean, Rolex sponsors almost every tournament.
Dang,
Okay?
gum.
Rolex is a major sponsor of the tour.
That's nuts.
If your major sponsors are all luxury brands or luxury banks,
Yeah.
there's a certain level they're trying to aspire to, right?
It's not you and I. For the most part.
Compared to like NASCAR, where the number one sponsor is M&M's and Budweiser.
It seems so lowbrow. Like, here you go, poor folks.
M&M's. I mean, that's the most well-known car on NASCAR's circuit is the number 8 M&M car.
It is.
Okay, you can see it no matter where it is on the track.
Shoot.
When Jeff Gordon was racing, it was the DuPont
Yep.
car because it was a rainbow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, DuPont is a chemical company that makes Teflon. Okay, for those of you who don't know. So again, we're talking Teflon versus
A Rolex.
Okay, or Saudi Airlines. Okay,
Yeah.
which is like the most luxurious airline you could possibly fly on.
Right.
Okay. So, Saudi Arabia last year, a group of investors came up with this idea of having their own golf circuit. Kind of like there's the European circuit and the Asian circuit and the South American circuit, and like I said.
Right.
So, they made their own golf league. Now, one thing I didn't realize until I started looking at this was that the European circuit and the Asian circuit and the South American circuit and whatever, they actually all, while they are PGA
Affiliates.
affiliated, they actually have their own, quote, league that you have to be part of to play in them.
Okay.
So here in the U.S., PGA is it,
Right.
Okay, which stands for the Professional Golfers Association.
Mm-hmm.
But all of the tournaments in the U.S. are going to be PGA tournaments. You have to have a PGA
Card
card
to play.
in order to play. You have to have a player's card, not just a member card, because you can actually become a PGA member and not be able to play on their. So, like, if you just want to be a member of a PGA club, you can be a PGA member. But if you want to play on the
tour,
circuit, play on
right.
the tour, you have to
Be a
be a PGA player member.
got it. Okay.
And you earn your card. All of the other circuits that or tours that these players sometimes bounce back and forth from,
Mm-hmm.
while they have separate leagues, most of them, some of them, they are leagues that are recognized by the PGA, and they've formed a partnership with.
Okay.
Now, the opening is happening this week, and that's why they were talking to Tiger.
Right.
Because he was going to be golfing in the British Open.
Mm-hmm.
The Open, the Masters, the U.S. Open, and I can't remember what the fourth one is now. It used to be the Amateurs Championship, but I can't remember what the third one is, or fourth one is now.
Okay.
Those are considered neutral ground when it comes to your affiliations.
So anybody can play.
That's why it's an open. Anybody can come in and play.
So that's what the open means. It's open to anybody. Do you have to be part of these affiliate things, or does it matter?
Doesn't matter. That's why, like, Bryson DeChambeau was playing.
Yeah.
Even though, actually, I don't remember who all. I was like, oh, really? He's one of the ones that went away? It's here in the article. But, like, certain players were still playing, even though they had become part of this Saudi Arabian league.
Right.
Because it's an open. All of the 4 major opens have an amateur division.
Okay.
Okay. So, today, a young man from Italy won the amateur portion of the Open, and he got his silver medal. And
Aw, cool.
so the thing is that the Saudi Arabians, they made their own series, their own set of courses and everything, and they created this LIV Golf Invitational Series.
Okay.
I don't know what LIV stands for.
Dang.
I didn't go that far.
I'm glad you knew that question was still lingering in my brain.
there was enough here to blow my mind in just this one article that I didn't go too far into the history of it because I knew just talking about this was going to take up enough time.
Yeah.
But they created this thing and the PGA was like, dude, I don't know if we want to, become partners with you.
Is it because of Saudi Arabia?
Some of it, I think, is. I think a lot of it's political.
That's what that's the first thought I had.
Because of their human rights and because so many of the players were against it when it was brought up to begin with.
Oh, like American player or people who played in Open in general.
Anybody with a PGA player's card on any of the circuits.
So do they vote if this happens, or they were just like, we don't?
I think it just, a lot of people were like, yeah, we're not going to go in there and play. I mean,
right. I mean, you can join it, but they're not going to have any of us over there.
I don't want to get involved in that whole rigmarole over there.
Oh, right.
Because there's a lot of things to not like about Saudi Arabia.
Mm-hmm.
And they're very afraid of losing their fans over it.
I can see people dropping like flies.
So, I'm trying to find the names. Okay, so these are all people that, except for Phil Mickelson, because I knew he had done this. Mm-hmm. I knew he had joined LIV. But Bruce Koepka and Dustin, I did not realize had done this. And basically, PGA was like, it's up to you guys. If you want to go and play in Saudi Arabia, you can join their thing.
Right.
But you're going to lose your card.
Oh, they're going to take their PGA players
So
card?
they took the players card away from Mickelson, Johnson, and Koepka.
What?
And I was like, why am I not seeing Koepka like literally every time I'm watching golf?
Right.
And it's because he doesn't have a PGA card anymore, but he was playing at the Open. Because
you don't need one.
Dustin Johnson was playing at the Open. So yeah, it was just very one of those things where I was like, why are they talking about this weird league? And
right.
So basically that was the thing that I didn't realize is that they had taken their PGA cards when they decided to join this thing. My guess is, again, that it has to do with the politics of it and not wanting to look like they are allowing players to just run around and try to get a ton of money and not caring about human rights and the Khashoggi stuff and all of that.
It's very much like...
Because the Crown Prince is one of the founders of this league. Although they have over $250 million in prizes in this league.
So, okay, then it becomes a question. Two questions. One, can the players then at some point somehow earn their players' cards back? Two, is the money worth losing your players' card and not being able to participate anymore in the other Opens for this one opportunity?
Well, you can participate in the Opens.
In the PGA
Tour.
Is it worth to lose all that opportunity and all that potential money? How do you...
I mean, I'm guessing some of the people are like, well, if it's a smaller pool of players, I'm more likely to win the prizes.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you would be able... My guess is if you were like, yeah, I'm quitting this and here's my card, you could possibly earn your card back.
Yeah.
But I think you would have to go through all the steps of earning your card back. I don't know how they're actually ruling on it because it's so new.
Right.
I mean, it literally started last year.
That's crazy.
At the end of last year's PGA Championships is when I started hearing the Saudi Arabia stuff.
So this reminds me of, how we talk about with football, protect the shield. This is very much the same idea. Like, we're protecting the PGA brand and the name because I'm almost about 90% sure it boils down to the politics.
I am as well, and I'm certain the next time we cover a golf show, I will come back with information on it. I just, like I said, I knew just talking about just this one thing was going to take up a lot of time. And there were other things on the Open that I also wanted to talk about because they were playing at the oldest course that they play at this year. So the British Open moves around from course to course.
I didn't know that.
throughout England.
Okay.
So does the U.S. Open. It moves from course to course. But the British Open moves from course to course throughout England. And
Right.
this year they were playing at the Royal and Ancient Golf Club of St. Andrews.
First of all, it's called ancient.
It has been in existence since the 14th century. That's the 1300s.
Wow.
Okay.
They were playing
It's
golf
a very
back then?
oh yeah, the golf game is ancient. I mean, literally, that you can trace the roots of it back to like the 10th century.
Merry Christmas. Okay.
And it was made illegal at one point in time in Scotland. I will have to figure it out. When Scotland unified with England, and the Reformation happened and everything, they actually made golf illegal. Because it was taking golfers away from the church. Anyways.
Okay. Alrighty.
Again, something you learn watching Antiques Roadshow. But anyways.
The random book of facts that's in your brain. Really quick before you go too far. So how did Tiger tie into this? What exactly did he say about the LIV?
Again, what he said was all these players have turned their back on the PGA and the things that made them.
So he was saying the players are wrong.
So he was asked what his thoughts were on it.
Okay.
And he said, these players that have joined have turned their backs on the thing that made them. Now, you know, there's a little bit of bad blood between him and Mickelson. I don't know if you remember, but about 3 or 4 years ago, they actually did a pay-per-view where it was just Mickelson against Woods.
You know I don't know that.
And there was a lot of trash talking. And people were paying like $150 to tune into this on pay-per-view. If you wanted all 3 days, you got,
It was just the two of them.
just the two of them going back and forth.
What is this bad blood? Did somebody say something? Usually that's how that stuff starts.
No. I think it's just personality.
They just clash.
Tiger, until Tiger went through all of his stuff with addiction and rehab and all of that,
Right.
he was not known to be a very
Personable.
friendly, personable person on the course.
Yeah.
His dad had raised him to be kind of ultra focused, and you don't talk to anybody.
You are a man amongst yourself.
Well, not only that, but you are the only real player on the course. Everybody else are pretenders.
Ew.
That's how he was raised.
Ego.
That's how he was raised.
See, parents? You can do some real damage if you're not careful.
So, you know, there's not great blood between him and Mickelson anyway, so I think somebody probably asked about how he felt about Phil doing this.
And it branched off into.
So,
interesting.
St. Andrews is a very compact course.
What's that mean?
Very small.
Oh.
So it's got the regulation amount of holes, but if you think of golf courses around here, you're like, man, it will take like hours to walk around them.
Sprawling.
They're sprawling.
Acres.
They're huge, right?
Right.
It literally is in the middle of the city of St. Andrews, okay? Because it's been there for so long.
Right. So they built the city up around it.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. You can watch from the church windows.
What? Okay.
Okay?
It's like bleacher seats.
Yes. And so there are what they call double greens. And because they only get back to St. Andrews once every like 7 years, I did not realize this was even a thing.
Double green.
So basically, instead of, because of how small the area is, you have a fairway going out and a fairway coming in that are along the same track. Okay? They're just parallel to each other. So hole number 1's green will have hole number 18's green. Not all of them are doubles, okay? But I'm just saying, like, I think it's like 3 and 17 or something.
Yeah.
But you have, 1 and say 17, I think it actually might be. I don't remember. But, they basically, instead of taking and making 2 very small greens, they just make it a giant green. And they have 2 different colored flags. So as you're going out your first 9, you're looking at yellow flags. And as you're coming back, your second green. 9, you're looking for red flags in the holes. And those are the holes you're going for on that green.
Is there something dividing the two?
No. They're just giant greens, and you're headed to the red flag instead of the yellow flag. And they do have to stop play because sometimes there's players from the opposite hole that shares that green up on the green, and you don't want to drive your ball while they're still putting.
The bad things that could happen. Right in somebody's head.
I'm just saying. Rory McIlroy came really close to winning it this year, and everybody was pulling for him because he's from Northern Ireland.
Was he like minus 16 at some point?
He was
killing it.
And then this young kid from Australia who actually they were the leaders coming in yesterday morning.
Yeah.
He was player number 3 coming in today because Rory and Haviland were tied for first, and then the two Cameron Young, Cameron Smith.
Oh, I was about to say what?
Were tied for second at the beginning of today, and Cameron Smith from Australia won 20 shots down, tied with Tiger Woods for the course record.
Dang. Wait, is this his first Open?
First British Open, yes.
That's nuts. That means you had to do so spectacularly good.
He got really lucky. Now, I will say, if you happen to tune in, the greens were really brown this year. Europe is in a major hot stretch, drought. Yeah. The sand traps, I don't know if you noticed how they have vertical walls. Usually those walls are covered in green moss. So it looked very, very weird to see them playing on it. It was a very stiff ground.
Do they not water their greens?
They're in a massive drought. They're not allowed to.
Makes sense.
So, those are a couple of things. I also, while watching, was like, what the heck is that flag? So if you were watching, most of us, when they're playing PGA Tour stuff in the U.S., we see Rory, and he'll have a Great Britain flag, a Union Jack next to his name. Right? When you're playing in Britain, they actually divide you up by your nationalities. So there's an English flag that I didn't realize. There's a Scottish flag. Oh. There's a Northern Ireland flag. And there's a Scotland flag. Wales flag. Okay? What I didn't know, I looked it up because I was like, what is this English flag that looks like the Norwegian Red Cross flag? And I looked it up, and there was a whole breakdown of how, they combined the English flag, the Scottish flag, and the Northern Ireland flag to become the Union Jack when those three were united. Oh. So
then
that was just, again, another thing that made me go, Because I was like, what is that flag, and why?
You had a Gina moment.
So, just the little things that you notice as you're watching these sports. Right. Those are the things that we actually want people to email us about.
Right. Like, what is this weird thing that I noticed randomly one day?
Or send us a message on our social media. But I believe we have gone through our half-hour time allotment.
I think so. No, wait.
We haven't yet? Where are we at now?
He's not paying attention. Mm-hmm. Poor K. Poor K.
We're at 45. So, yeah.
Okay. Sorry. He left the room, and then he left his timing duties behind.
He left all his responsibilities at the door when he came back.
Okay, so, part 1 and part 2 will add up to slightly more than an hour this week.
Right. Bonus. You get bonus content.
So, anyways, we want to thank you guys for listening to us in a 2-parter.
Yeah.
And, our social media at this point.
But you know what? I love you so much. Facebook. Wait, what sports? Instagram. Wait, _what_sports. Twitter. WWSports22. Gmail. Wait, what sport? No, WWSports22@gmail.com. So many ways. So many. Spotify. You can listen to any episode. If you want to know why the British Open was such a big thing and why the conditions of the green were causing issues, you can backtrack to our previous episode about golf where we talked about all that. We will always refer back to those things for you guys because you got to keep it fresh. But on that note, we thank you for listening. On behalf of myself, Amy, and Dr. Robinson, we will see you on the next one. Bye, humans.
Bye.